Hey, Black Americans, did you know there's a cop who's on trial right now because they found text messages saying that this guy wanted to lynch us, call us all kind of gorillas and monkeys and all kind of stuff? Did you guys see that? Did you know that was even happening right now? Because this guy, Morteza Amiri, used to work for Antioch in California. This guy was a canine officer. They found text messages showing that he wanted to lynch us. And they're wondering why we are resting. They are wondering why we are not putting on the capes. And the reason why we are not putting on the capes is because you don't want to deal with your Morteza Amiris. Seriously. You see that dog right there, Percy? He would brag about how he would let Percy go and bite on black people. Yeah. So let's go ahead and read this little article here. Just the first paragraph. A jury must now decide whether ex-Antioch police officer Morteza Amiri gleefully conspired to prey on residents in a racist, quote, blood for blood, end quote, campaign across the city he is sworn to protect, or if he is an innocent victim of lying witnesses and cherry-picked text messages. Cherry-picked. He wants to say that when he called black people gorillas, that was cherry-picked. Boy, if you don't stop the cap. This man is Count Capula. He is the Kappa from Kappa's Lagoon. This man's favorite martial arts style is capoeira. His favorite superhero is Captain America. Just full of cap. Sir, there is no way to spin this. You were a police officer, and you want to talk about this black and brown coalition, and this man was doing this, and yet you got all these people on TikTok and YouTube and Twitter, X, Facebook, gaslighting black Americans saying, why are you not putting on the capes? Why are you not putting on the capes? How many of them are even talking about this right now? It's in the news, as you can see. How many of these people out here gaslighting us are even talking about this shit? How many? And in fact, I want you to read the other part here. Quote, those vastly different portrayals took center stage Wednesday as jurors began deliberating the fate of Amiri, a former Antioch canine officer accused of wrongfully releasing his dog on dozens of people and later lying about it in police reports. Prosecutors say he wasn't alone, but rather worked with other officers. So there were other officers. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you a good bit of them were Latino because there's a whole lineup. He's one of many. I've covered the case of Morteza Amiri several times with Antioch. The Antioch Police Department in California, a bunch of officers were caught talking about lynching us as black Americans. Yeah. And the vast majority of them, Latino. Oh, you didn't know that? Yeah, but they're wondering why we're not putting on the capes. Okay. All right. Well, check this out. Prosecutors say he wasn't alone, but rather worked with other officers to maim as many people as possible, particularly black residents, under the guise of being a, quote, proactive, end quote, police officer. Wow. So to try to say, hey, I'm just serving and protecting, you're doing that by brutalizing black people. And yet you're wondering why we are resting. You're wondering why our capes have been put in the closet, baby. Our capes are in dry cleaning. Our capes are in the washer, and it's going to hit several cycles for the next 4 years and beyond. You're wondering why we're not putting on the capes. How come no one who's gaslighting us is talking about Morteza Amiri and other officers like him? Isn't that strange? You don't want to talk about George Zimmerman, even though what he did started the Black Lives Matter movement, and now you don't want to talk about this guy? Isn't that straight? That's a strange coinky-dink. And in fact, if you read here, according to Assistant U.S. Attorney Eric Chung, he said that Amiri used his police dog, Percy, like I was telling you towards the beginning of the video. He uses his police dog, Percy, to chase down particularly black people, as part of a trophy chase. So his dog is used to going after black people. He trained him to do that because when you have a dog doing that repeatedly, at some point that becomes training. You want to know how I know that? Because the dog that he had looks like a Belgian Malinois. And I've had a Belgian Malinois before. And I have 5 dogs, 4 of which are German Shepherds. So I know a little something about dog training. I would have to at some point to have that many dogs, right? So when you do that repeatedly, At some point, you've trained that dog to target us. Wow. Boy, this gets deep, don't it? And you're wondering why we ain't got the freaking capes on. Boy, ain't that fascinating, Black America. Ain't it fascinating? You are wondering why we don't put on the capes, why we are not Captain Save everybody on the planet Earth right now. Because as it stands from where I sit, this guy over here had a trophy case. And I can almost assure you somebody else knew about this. I know his coworkers did, but I guarantee you other people in the community knew about it and said nothing because, as certain other organizations once said and certain members have said, or organizations once said, their problems are not our problems. This kind of stuff is not happening in front of a huge neighborhood of certain folks because, that's not happening in front of a bunch of certain folks, and they're not noticing. Because when you look at the LA City Council, we know that there are people in LA who knew this stuff was happening to us. All the racial redlining, all the racism, all that stuff. There were people in certain other communities who knew about it outside the Black community. The Black community knew it very, very well because it was happening to us. But certain other people who were supposed to be our allies, the coalition, they knew about it, but said nothing. Because remember, their problems are not our problems, right? So before you come at me again about why we don't have the capes on, I'm going to say Morteza Amiri and George Zimmerman. Go deal with them. You know what's interesting? Both of these guys, I know for a fact, Morteza Amiri, he has social media stuff. Because before all this stuff happened, before all the jury stuff, I found all that stuff. I know that for a fact. And I know George Zimmerman is on social media. So before you come to my comment section, whining and complaining to me, go find one of those, talk to them, and then come back to me. Okay? Because from where I sit, this looks like there was never a coalition. That certain folks knew this stuff was happening. See, that's the whole thing. See, that's the whole thing about the Boy Scouts, the Catholic Church, and all the other organizations who do all this dirt. People sit around and act like they didn't know. That's the part that gets me. The people who like, I didn't know. Really? This kind of stuff happens. All this stuff around the country happens, but ain't no one see anything. Everyone's blind. Everyone can't hear. Everyone can't smell. They can't taste. They can't do nothing. That's the part that nobody wants to just get down to it. Someone knew and said nothing. And that's why the cape's ain't on right now. You want to know how I know that? Because he came from someone, right? He got a mama and daddy, right? He got maybe brother, sister, cousins. Who do you think raised him to be like this? That's why the capes aren't on. The answer to the question that I just asked, who do you think raised him? That's why the capes ain't on right now.